Hello and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine what is the single greatest movie of any given year. This season is 2002, and we are hard at work, sort of. We've done a couple movies, but man, we really got to get on it. There's so many movies we're doing this season. This is the first season we've ever done 16 instead of usually just the Elite 8, and we've barely done anything. With me as always is Greg.
Sorry. I thought I would just jump in there.
All right, let's hold on one more time. I'm just going to talk and then you jump in. With me as always is Greg.
Hey, it's me, Greg. Yeah, we were like, we'll do more movies than we've ever done before. And now we're like, we'll do them later.
And at some point, we have to break for the end of the year shows. So 2002, you're going to be with us for longer than the actual year 2002. Let us never forget that special year. Mike could not be with us tonight. That's why I'm hosting. So taking his place is professional Mike impersonator, Katelynn.
Oh, hey, it's Katelynn. I love 2002 and movies and food, Italian. I'm Mike.
That's why she's a professional, folks. That's the exact impression that she gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. Katelynn, you had you talked to like Enron or some company the other day, for a seminar, and as Mike, how much money did you make for that?
I made so much money. I actually own oil corporations now.
Wow.
I have so much wealth. It's crazy.
You got paid in oil corporations.
Yep. It's great.
We'll give you 3 different oil corporations, please.
Yep. I own BP now.
Tonight we're doing State of the Franchise, and this is where we go through the franchises that were important to 2002 and sort of decide whether or not they're on life support or they're still doing okay. Let's just talk
2002.
In 2002,
yeah.
And what we can do to change them to be more 2022. This is the 20-year anniversary of that. Every day of this year is the 20th anniversary of that year. So much to celebrate. Just in general, though, we know the state of the franchise in 2022. It's be that or don't. Be that or be dead. In 2002, do you guys can you talk about the general state of the franchise? Was it as vital to be a part of a franchise back then?
No, I think it's you had to sort of not be part of a franchise, but maybe there was still the cachet of being a recognizable property. Because
yes,
there
IP.
is, but it felt less franchisey and more this is a different take on the same thing. Because there's a Blade movie. There's a Hannibal Lecter movie and Red Dragon, but Blade isn't a direct sequel. But Red Dragon doesn't feel like so much a prequel as it feels like a kind of different take on the same idea.
You remember this character, right? You'll buy tickets just because of that, right?
Yeah, Anthony Hopkins is going to be doing the character, so come on in and check it out.
Does Katelynn, at this time for you, does knowing the character, is that a better chance of you being in the movie theater?
100%. I think this is where franchises really started for me, because there's Spider-Mans, there's Harry Potter, there's Star Wars, all these things where I was watching one movie, but I knew I was going to watch more, or I watched them previously, which got me to come back to the theater. So I think this was the start of it, and now we're deep in it.
I do think that in the 90s and 80s there was a couple of major sequels. But for the most part, it was oh, you're trash. You're a horror franchise if you have a sequel. And this is when it really started to kick off of you can make okay money if we've never heard of your character, but you will. The only way to make bank is to we have heard of these characters before. Mm-hmm. And I think this might have been the start of where we don't care about actors anymore. We're not going to see Tobey Maguire. We're going to see Spider-Man, and that's sort of where I want to start here. Is Spider-Man? What is the state of the franchise with Spider-Man right now? Would you guys say?
This is the year the first one came out, right? Because that was one of our first episodes. A very strong first entry. I think that nobody at this point thought of it as a franchise. Thought probably it would just be a one-off, but a lot of promise and a lot of early returns for Spider-Man.
We have a movie with all the 3 Spider-Mans in it now, that came out, I think, this year.
Yeah. We're going to get to There's a couple of times tonight in this episode where we're going to talk about, wow, they brought the 2002 people back for 2022 stuff. But Spider-Man, I think, was the most important. And I think that it ended in a way where it wasn't like a cliffhanger, but it was like, we've got some more things up our
he's
sleeve.
probably going to return.
Yeah.
This guy's probably coming
He might
back.
sling some more webs.
But, it like part of what was so exciting about it, we talked about this on the show, is that it obviously like loves comic books. And so it was like an enthusiastic support of Spider-Man, like an enthusiastic entry into a whole new thing that like the last chapter of which, as Katelynn referenced, just closed recently.
Would you say that 20 years later, after this movie, I think that this movie was a surprise hit. I think that it's not Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman. It wasn't one of the three big ones of a different company.
I feel like if they thought for sure it was going to be a hit, they wouldn't have given it to Sam Raimi.
For sure, yeah. Or they wouldn't have sold off the rights to a different company. They would have held on to that for as long as possible. It took decades of it going, and they still don't even own it outright. Like they have a partnership, the owners of Marvel. But would you say now, over the last 20 years since this movie, he has become the number one superhero, if not the number one fictional character?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It seems like it all starts and ends with him, and kind of he has had a big hand in like the whole creation of multiverses. It's not just exclusively Spider-Man, but like that's an idea that kind of does start with the different Spider-Men. And so that, I think, is like a kind of genre unto itself and a character that is like a mascot for that.
I think Spider-Man is like if we were to look at 2002 to 2022, like Spider-Man has grown so much. And yes, like the first Spider-Man movie was so exciting, but like having all three Spidermans this year, like, and just seeing how much it's grown, it's like, it's doing pretty fucking good, Ryan.
I would say thumbs up to them. Yeah, I think the back-to-back of Into the Spider-Verse and No Way Home was sort of like not just proof, but also playing on the fact that this is the biggest character.
And it's always so fun. It seems like a character that you'd think you'd get like bored with, but they keep twisting and turning it in different ways where you're like, man, I sure do like this Spider-Man still.
That's a good point. In a way that like Batman, who I would say is his rival as far as the number one person, is not fun.
Yeah, and I think they're drawing on something that the comic book character of Spider-Man definitely has, but they draw on it in a unique movie way, which is that we know that all these superheroes are actually people and that they have like human experiences too. But Spider-Man does a really good job of showing the character like kind of first as human. And so I think that really helps us to connect to everything that the character is going through and to really care and feel like we're sort of in the shoes of Spider-Man.
To me, that seems like such an obvious thing that people refuse to copy. They refuse to be like, well, then we'll do the opposite. If that's what everybody loves, we'll do the other thing. Like,
yeah,
guys, make us feel for your character, the actual character.
And that's something that kind of can, you could trace all the way back to the Christopher Reeves Superman movie. So it's like it is in the character of several comic book characters. It's just not part of Batman for sure. Like, Batman as a franchise holds Bruce Wayne and people like him with a lot of contempt, insofar as Bruce Wayne is just a kind of ineffectual, rich playboy. But Spider-Man, the universe cares about Peter Parker and the tension between Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Katelynn, if I could trade any franchise right now, currently in 2022, for 3 oil companies, I don't even know if that's everything you own. I just know you own at least 3. Would Spider-Man be the one you trade it for?
Wow, that's a hard one because we also have like Star Wars and stuff. That one's kind of, we'll talk about that probably. But God, yeah, I would do it. I'd give you an oil company for Spider-Man.
Okay, I wanted 3, but I'll take the one.
I'll give you one.
I mean, you could just go host SNL as a Mike impersonator, and then you'll get 3 more oil companies, but that's fine. I think for 02 and 22, Spider-Man is the one. And now he's off the board. And so we're going to take a break, and we're going to dive into some of these lesser known things like that gross Star Wars thing Katelynn just mentioned. The next most important franchise, I think, is probably The Two Towers. This is the second part of Peter Jackson's all filmed at once Lord of the Rings trilogy. For a lot of people, I think it was the introduction to Lord of the Rings. It's a franchise that has had so much staying power that there's been huge battles over the rights to this property that finally got figured out, and we got delivered more of it in this year. Katelynn, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah.
How big of a deal do you think Lord of the Rings was 20 years ago? Did it seem like to the society?
Oh, I mean, it was huge because everyone had read The Hobbit in school or like knew of the books. And then I just remember it being just huge, like hearing about it. And then my mom was all into it. So, of course, I went to the theaters and saw it. And I mean, yeah, it was a big deal.
Did you want to go or did you go because your mom did?
I wanted to go because it was fantasy and that's the type of genre that I liked, and action. I was like, this sounds like everything I like. And there's elves too.
For you, Greg, I actually don't know the answer to this question. Did Peter Jackson get you into the Lord of the Rings, or were you jacked up for the movies because of previous knowledge?
It was a weird thing where it was like I knew the movies were coming out, and so I read the books. I had been meaning to read the books for a long time, and then I was like, oh, the movies are coming out, so I'll do that now. But that's a little bit different, obviously, than being like, oh, I was into them in high school and had read them all and was excited about the movie. And so they're very much, to me, sort of like bound together. But I remember it being huge in the sense that nothing that was like fantasy had been popular forever.
Right.
It felt like. The closest thing was Star Wars, which is a fantasy. It's a space fantasy, but it doesn't feel like it, really. Star Wars feels very much just pretty much straight sci-fi to most people. And it didn't try to like do that thing where like when the X-Men movie came out and they all had to be wearing like black leather and like because they wouldn't dare put on like the costumes from the comic book. It was very much just like, yeah, this stuff is pretty wild sometimes and some of the things they say are pretty dorky. And it leaned into it, you know, and then really highlighted what was fun about it at the same time. So it just felt like it kind of was a temperature shift. Like we never would have had Game of Thrones or Hot D without this like popping off the way that it did.
There's no way. And the crazy thing to me too is that this isn't just fantasy. It's like the text of fantasy. Like this is the thing that designed all of the types of characters that you see, like all of the races, like everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, it basically, it does a good job of translating like Norse mythology and the like sort of fairy tale into a more codified system that basically has persisted since then in all sorts of fantasy, you know, like some variation of it.
Do you guys feel that it is, let's get to the Amazon show in a second, but do you guys feel that like looking back with these other we've got 4 major franchises, 2 of which we'll get to, the other one is Spider-Man. Do you feel that it was buried in there, or do you feel like it definitely rose above and like there were other things in its shadow for sure?
I would say definitely rose above. Mm-hmm. I would say that it felt like one of the biggest like cultural touchstones of 2002.
Is it weird that it did this whole thing of being very popular and good?
I think it was weird for 2002. You know, I think that those two things didn't always go together, where it would be a big property and also be good at the same time.
I wonder if we missed Twitter or whatever in that time. I wonder if it was a bunch of like, this isn't true to the books, I hate this, let's all like negative backlash because now normies are watching our shit.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a whole contingent of people represented by Ben from Parks and Rec who are just like, well, I don't care for Peter Jackson's interpretation of Lord of the Rings because it's very actiony, you know, instead of like the very slow sort of like meticulous pace of the original novels.
And there's a piece of grass, and there's a blade of grass, and there's a blade of grass.
Like, and they camped here, and then they're like, you know what? While we're smoking our pipes around the fire, is it cool if I pop off with a big dwarven poem? It's like, nah, man, go for it. It's like, all right, here we go.
See, there's no way that at my advanced age and patience, I would be like, oh, I'll just read this poem. I would be blazing through that book as fast as possible.
Dude, yeah, that's one thing is nice if you can get an audio version of the original books because a lot of them like think out how to like perform the poems so that they're kind of cool, they're chants and stuff. But when you are reading and you're like kind of tired and you come to like 4 pages of like a poem, it's so hard not to be like, all right, I'm just gonna circle back around later and scoop this up, but for now, why don't I move on to the narrative proper?
Is it akin, Greg, to when you're reading a comic book and you turn the page and it's all prose and you're like, you motherfuckers.
Yeah,
like, how did you do this to me?
They like show you the page of a newspaper, but you're supposed to read the article on the newspaper, or like the columns in a magazine, and you're like, get the hell out of here. I said, I'm doing comics right now. You were already pushing it with all that text on the last page.
But what do we think of the state of the franchise in 2022?
In 2022, okay, so now we are saying of now.
Yeah.
I would say weaker than in 2002. It's in an okay place, but I think the Amazon show, I liked it a lot. I thought it was fun, and I thought they really leaned into, again, how dorky it is. And I thought it especially paid off if you made it through the whole season. Some really big things happened, some really cool things happened, some very interesting twists. But I'm just like, doing the zeitgeist meter, and it was right up against House of D, and it got taken to the cleaners. I felt like culturally, like every week,
Buzzwise,
it lost the conversation every single week, and that matters. So,
Katelynn, what are you going to do in a world where one show has intrigue and incest and like murder, and the other one's like, we're going to tell our story in our way? Like, can you compete?
I mean, in my world, I didn't watch the House of D because of the incest and stuff. I was like, I would prefer high fantasy. So I watched all of the Rings of Power. And for me, I don't know. It was very exciting. I liked it just like Greg. But Lord of the Rings, I feel like I didn't even realize it was 2002 because it's just a movie that continues to, like, people can pop it on. Like, that's one of the movies that we always just pop on if there's like nothing to do. You put on Lord of the Rings.
It's so weird how much like every social group, it's not just individuals, it's like every social group is like, we have not come together and watched the Lord of the Rings movies recently. Like, oh, okay. Maybe we'll block out a weekend to do that.
I think we talked about this before when we did the first movie, but it's become sort of a fall, winter, Thanksgiving tradition for so many people.
That's cool.
And the only thing I can say is that the movies came out at about that time.
Yeah.
But like everybody's
and blockbuster movies sometimes have a holiday feel. They can have a summer feel, but sometimes they can have a holiday feel. And I think like because it's mostly cold in the places they go.
See, to me, summer blockbusters are bright and sunny. I don't know why I would get that idea. And fall blockbusters, like this one and the one we're about to talk about, are sort of darker and snowier. And so it makes more sense to do this in wintertime. Fireplace is on, or your fireplace TV, if you have 2 TVs. I would put one on the fireplace channel. The other has Lord of the Rings going. The other thing I wanted to ask you guys about the show is, do you guys, and you're both Rings of Power defenders, but
for sure, yeah.
Do you guys think that maybe there's a timelessness to Rings of Power where Hot D gets all of the tweets right now because of how it's like cliffhangers and incest, but 10 years from now, even 5 years from now, we're going to talk more about the Rings of Power show because everybody has time to watch it and it's more timeless? Does that theory make sense?
Well, I think with how like streaming and everything is now, there's always going to be something hot and new. So I think if this, like the Rings of Power were let on, put out a while ago probably, but right now, I'm not sure. But it does have so much in it where you could just keep watching it and find little like nuggets of knowledge or something within the Rings of Power where I don't know about House of D and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those that I would go back to and watch again.
Hot D is definitely not, let's throw this on in the background, or let's throw this on because a group of people are over.
Oh, no. Yeah, you don't want to see.
Yeah, seriously.
Unless it's your siblings and your cousin. Then you throw it on.
It's one of those shows where I live like my living room window is kind of just like very close to the sidewalk outside my house. And there are times where we're watching that show and I'm like, I gotta get up and close the blinds. Like I can't just have this because like my TV is visible from outside our house. I have to say though, even having said that, for me, what I like so much about the House of the Dragon is like the political intrigue and all the infighting and the positioning and the alliances breaking and reforming and all the bombast and all the sort of like I don't know, racy material. It doesn't do that much for me personally, but I guess it is what keeps it in the cultural conversation. So as to which I think will last longer, I don't know. I think they're both intellectual shows ultimately. I really do. They just approach being intellectual in different ways. One, Lord of the Rings is like very sunny in a lot of ways. Not totally, but it looks at kind of like our better angels, and House of the Dragon looks at sort of our lesser selves. And I think that that's the divide more than like an intellectualism or there's also like really big bombastic things that happen in Lord of the Rings. It is also a very action oriented show. So I just think that's not necessarily what separates them.
Is this Tom Bombastic? Is this the character that we've been waiting for?
Still no Tom Bombadil.
Damn it. What is up with that guy's agent?
Yeah, you got to get in there. I think if you conceive of an idea, like Tolkien thought of this idea, like there should be this basically godlike figure, extremely powerful figure, but who just doesn't feel like getting involved, and so he shouldn't do anything at all. And
like the Watcher?
Yes. And then everyone else that came along was like, okay, but you can see why that's not interesting, right? Like that's narratively, it doesn't do much if his distinct characteristic is he doesn't get involved and he doesn't care to explain himself.
If there was two of them and everything that happens, the two of them are like, should we? Do you want?
Well, there's his cool wife.
Should you?
There's his cool wife, Marigold or whatever her name is.
I guarantee, I'm sure that Peter Jackson's cutting of that character was a great choice. It's just I hear about him all the time. Let me reintroduce my panelists tonight. My name is Ryan. With me is Greg, who I would say on average, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, gives every Star Wars thing probably 10 to 20% more quality credibility than most of the people.
That's fair.
With me as well as Katelynn, who dressed along with her husband as Star Wars characters at her wedding. Greg, you are on record saying that as much as I love Star Wars, Attack of the Clones is pure fucking trash.
Yeah, it used to be my number one pick for worst Star Wars movie, but The Rise of Skywalker is so...
Oh, shit, really?
I think The Rise of Skywalker is one of the worst things to ever happen.
Is The Rise of the Resistance a better movie than The Rise of Skywalker?
Oh, yeah, dude. Rise of Resistance for sure. I got way more of my money's worth when I paid the extra like $20 or whatever it cost to go on that ride.
Should people start ranking that in their Star Wars rankings? And how much higher would it be than a lot of other things?
Dude,
that ride rules.
They should start ranking it in their like lifetime experiences. It is. You never, especially the first time you go on it, because you have no idea what's going on. You're like, is this the ride? Am I even on it yet? What is going on?
Until you're booted out into the gift shop.
Yeah, and then you're just standing back in Star Wars land. I think I'm a spy now.
Checking for like laser injuries. Katelynn, you're a solid 25 to 30 years younger than the two of us. Is Attack of the Clones a good movie?
I like it for nostalgia. It's one of those where I enjoy, which most people don't enjoy, the Anakin Padme relationship.
Oh my goodness.
Those are the parts where I really enjoy it. Plus,
because you enjoy the acting between the two.
It's because Katelynn realized that I got this from the oral history of the CW. Two people watched that and said, we can make a whole channel of this shit. And
so I don't know how credible this is making me, but yeah, I do like that part, and also everything with General Grievous in this. So
okay,
yes.
Well, no complaints about General Grievous. Like there are very, very cool parts of Attack of the Clones. There's the Yoda
Camino.
and Dooku fight, right? Don't they fight in?
Oh yes, I think
yeah.
so.
And so you do get a lot of cool stuff. It's just George Lucas. It became so clear when he remade when he did the first three, the prequels. It became so clear that he doesn't really understand people or like how they work, and he certainly does not understand what it's like to be people falling in love, because those scenes are just like it's so clear. He got to those pages and he was just like, what even happens in these exchanges? And you can tell the actors have no idea like how their characters are supposed to be feeling and like what they're supposed to be aware of.
I also think too, as somebody who will live and die and defend 4, 5, and 6, I can feel everybody back then when they came out being like, we love it, it's corny. And he was like, I'm glad you love it, but what was that second thing you said? I don't understand the second thing. And then when the prequels came out, it was more corny, but not by that much. But still, at that point, we were like, all right, fuck this shit, dude.
Yeah. I mean, he will unironically say that he kind of thinks of them as like silent movies with the score being
I would have loved this being silent.
Yeah. And so, like, then what does he think of, like, written dialogue if he thinks that they should just be, like, the title cards that pop up?
Has anybody done that on YouTube or whatever where they say a line and then the title card? That it would be so much more clear and readable if it was just a title card instead of having to listen to this dialogue come out of their mouths.
That's the thing.
We know at this point that Hayden and Natalie are capable of good performances.
Yes, yeah.
Like, he sucked the talent out of their bodies.
And ruined one of their careers and almost ruined both of their careers. She had to, like, go around and get, like, letters of recommendation from famous directors before she could work again. And I guess he didn't do the same work, so then he was like, well, I'll just be on a show later, maybe.
How surprising is it, though? We were so excited as kids about 3 new Star Wars movies. This is the second one, and it's the third biggest movie of the year. Spider-Man and Boromir both passed this movie.
Wow.
That feels like a failure, right? Like, it was supposed to be the premier thing in Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, we had already been so, and the public had been so, like, sort of bitten by how bad the original one was. And it was like, everybody was like, you know what? I'll tell you this much. This next one is not going to be as bad as that first one. Now that it's going and we'll be able to be away from the child actor, everything is going to be fine. And then seriously, it shits the bed even harder. Like, I just think people were just tired.
Oh, you just watch. You watch how bad I can make a movie. Katelynn, do you think that the failure of the movie was ultimately because nobody at any point said, oh my God, it's an Attack of the Clones?
I think they did say it once, actually, Ryan.
Fucking,
and
what the fuck is this movie?
That makes it a great movie and does make me want to watch it right after this.
All right, before we take a break, I have one more to go through. This is the number 4 movie of the year. I believe this is the second in the series. This is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Mm-hmm. I want to talk to you guys not about this movie, which is pretty much everyone agrees is the worst one. Yeah. Like, this is before they switched directors. This is Chris Columbus' second movie. And everybody was like, all right, bud, you got to go. This is too much money on you. I want to talk about the state of the franchise today. 2022. Where are we at with this? Fantastic Beasts is sort of like a dwindling failure. When is the next time we see something from this world, do you think? And what will that be?
I mean, my wife was the biggest Harry Potter fan, but J.K. Rowling, like, burned through all the goodwill. Like, it is around these parts, it is like it's a dead franchise. We went from, like, having the decorations all over the place and being excited about the next things to come out to, like, never mentioning it or thinking about it. It's become, I think, a major, like, battleground in the so-called culture wars. And I just don't think that, like, most people can feel comfortable being into a franchise, the creator of which is just so vocally and still currently every day being like, trans women aren't women. Like, it just...
And you have to give her credit. She keeps coming out with more statements that say, no, you guys misunderstood me.
Let me take another go at this.
Katelynn, were you ever a Harry Potter person?
Oh, yeah. I went to the premieres of almost every single one of the movies. I went to Borders bookstore when the books came out, the book reveals at midnight. I was a huge Harry Potter fan.
And these fucking kids, these like 10, 11, 12-year-olds would knock out a 500-page book in a night.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I would
so
read
crazy.
These in a night or two. And they were great. And I would dress up as the characters. But then, yeah, these new movies are hot garbage. I thought I was going to be all into them. They're so bad, Ryan.
They're so boring.
And I love bad movies. Like, as you can see, as I love Attack of the Clones. These are bad movies, Ryan.
I mean, that's the other thing. The double whammy of I'm going to piss off all of my progressive fans, which for Harry Potter, that's a lot of them.
Almost all of them.
Conservatives won't do it because it's teaching witchcraft to Christianity, so they don't like it.
You based your bad guy on the premier fascist, and then you were surprised when all of the fans were anti-fascist.
Oh, I see. J.K. Rowling was upset. She was like, he's not the premier fascist. I'm the premier fascist.
I'm Voldemort.
But then, yeah, also, I haven't seen them, but I hear a lot of Katelyn's sentiment of they're also trash movies. So what are we doing here?
It became so clear that what really, really was compelling about the original Harry Potter stories was Hogwarts. That was a really good idea. Like having a school for witches and wizards. It worked well for a series of books. It worked okay for a series of movies. The second she didn't have that to lean on, like, it's just so boring. She had no other good ideas.
Like when the Muppet Babies became Muppet adults.
When the Muppet Babies grew up, yeah.
If I offered you guys the Harry Potter, all the Rowling-verse franchise for one half of an oil company, would you do it, sit on it, maybe wait for 10 years, do some more plans, or is it just like a bunk franchise now?
I think it's pretty bunk. And I think that's J.K. Rowling's doing.
Damn, dude.
Yeah, because
yeah,
you can't circle the square of you pointed it out, Ryan. You can't circle the square of all the progressive fans hate it, and at its core, it's about witchcraft, and so there's nowhere left for her to go with it. Really, it's just going to be an increasingly toxic.
What if Kevin Feige came out and he said, "I'm taking over," and she has no responsibility? Does that change things?
No, I don't think they could wash it clear of her. The way it's the way it has sunk into the property. It's like not even a conscious choice for a lot of people to not be into it anymore. Because honestly, when you look at the books and when you look the books and the movies, you can see that she's a toxic person in the way she wrote the books. Several like characteristics of people are quite racist and
stuff that you would just move past if you were reading it and not know anything about her. That's so crazy.
And there's a meanness and a cruelness in her book that I think is just now we know that that's part of the person.
What if she tweeted, "Hey, you know all that trans stuff? JK, Rowling on the floor laughing." Would that solve everything?
I think you figured out how to actually sell it, Ryan.
Right. I think
that idea costs 2 oil companies, and I want them.
I don't know if it's sufficient, Ryan, but I do think that's what healing will begin to look like.
All right, we're going to take one last break, and then apparently there were other franchises besides these 4 giants.
Boo.
All right, there's a couple of these that we have to get through real quick. Guys, what would happen if there was an Ice Age movie today? In 2002, did it seem like Ice Age was going to be the next big thing? Greg, we should start with you because Katelynn is blushing and covering her face.
I would say... I have to actually say yes, Ryan. The question is so set up for me to go no, but I happen to have nephews who were like the correct Ice Age for this movie, and they really liked it. If I'm not mistaken, friend of the show, perhaps best friend of the show, Johnny Legs, does a voice in this movie. It's got the little guy with the acorn that America seems to love.
Mm-hmm.
I think
future
if we weren't
Pop Filter Hall of Famer Ray Romano.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think if we weren't currently addicted to Minions, Ice Age would still be ruling.
Katelynn, does this franchise need to come back?
God, no. I watched this first movie, and I don't know what about it. I think it was like the imminent doom that just scared me. I liked it, and then I don't know. It sent me down a spiral, and I was like, I do not want to see any of these movies ever again. So the fact that it got picked up for so many sequels and that it just recently died, like, it's crazy.
Is there something unfun about watching a movie where there's a climate catastrophe as like the background of the action?
I think that's what really got to me.
Yeah, this is my future 2.5 years from now. In 2002, we got a movie called Die Another Day. Greg, do you know what that is?
That is one of the James Bond movies, right? Is that the one with Halle Berry?
I think.
Another day.
Who was the singer, Katelynn? Do you remember?
I think, oh my gosh. I can think of the song in my head, but I can't think of who it was.
Isn't that one of the weird ones where it's like a rock band that does it?
It's Madonna.
Oh, that's what it was. Yes, it's Madonna.
But yeah, sometimes it'll be like James Bond theme by Imagine Dragons.
Yeah. You're like, wait, what? Isn't it supposed to be a sultry lady? What's going on?
But yeah, this I think was the thing that was dying another day was the James Bond franchise.
Yeah.
since then we've had, and I don't like compared to Spider-Man and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, and Star Wars, this was out. Like nobody gave a fuck, right, about this.
Oh yeah, I think Pierce Brosnan. Everybody gave him like the chance with GoldenEye, and then I think it was kind of already over by the end of GoldenEye.
If we're gonna rate Rise of the Resistance in Star Wars things, we have to rate GoldenEye for N64 for James Bond things.
Oh yeah,
and that's so far above almost all movies, right?
For sure.
Well, we saw Die Another Day. I think that was one of my first 007 movies. And then after that, we watched so many others. But the reason why we did is because we loved GoldenEye, the video game on the N64.
Yeah. I mean, that, for so many people, that was, wait, there's a movie based on this?
Yeah.
They made a movie about a video game?
In GoldenEye 64, there's a part where you have to take an elevator, and when you get into the elevator, the music in the level switches to elevator music. And I remember I had never seen anything like that in a game before, and I was so impressed.
I also see so much on social media about the pause menu song.
Yeah.
The theme that plays. Just
for
that
sure.
Daniel Craig is gone. So what is the state of the franchise today? Like, are you guys looking forward to a new James Bond, or do you care at all?
I might watch another one, but I guess it's not like top of my list. I'm gonna go see this. It's fine.
What if it's not a straight white male?
Then I'd be more excited, but I feel like it's the same movie over and over again. So it doesn't, like, whoever is 007, the story is the same. If they were to switch up the story a little bit, Fast and Furious I don't know, maybe it'd be more exciting and I'd be more inclined to watch it.
That's what I was going to say, is that I agree with Katelynn, and this is coming from two Fast and Furious fans, I can tell more differences between each Fast and Furious movie than I can James Bond movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there are casting decisions they could make that would be interesting, that would get me back into the theater. I felt like for the last 10 years, Idris Elba was like the only actor who should be James Bond. And I think that's just so clear. And I think that would be like the franchise moving in an interesting new direction. But I kind of sat out the whole Daniel Craig. I felt like
oh, really?
Yeah, and I know that's weird because a lot of people say that's has been a great moment in it. But I felt like gritty realism and James Bond were just a weird combination that I could never get into for whatever reason.
Idris Elba, I don't know, kind of freaks me out because Idris Elba's American accent, he's sexy as hell. James Bond with his British accent, sexy as hell. Idris Elba's British accent, he's just like, oh, what is all this, Dad? Is this done by James Bond? Am I going to be James Bond then right now, am I? God, have you heard his rap songs in his accent?
No.
To him, it's not an accent, but anyway, we'll get to that later. Bourne Identity also came out this year.
Oh, yeah.
And that's sort of the reason for the Daniel Craig James Bond style. Do we want or need more Bourne movies now?
I feel like Cassie would disagree and say more Bourne every day. But I honestly didn't even know we had another Bourne movie that came out.
There's 4.
Oh, geez.
5 total. There was
wow.
The first one was this year, and then 2 more Damons, and then 1 Jeremy Renner, and then 1 more Damon. And then
wow.
The 4th, the Renner one, and the 5th Damon one were both flops. Like everybody was like, "We're done. We got it."
Yeah, I think we have probably fully explored the idea, but I think that it was a strong franchise, and in 2002, it was certainly a strong franchise.
The thing I love about it, though, is that, like, in literature and film, too, like, movements happen when you decide to do the opposite of what had been done.
Yeah.
And this was such a clear one to me. It's just like, action movies are crazy, and now we have the Bourne Identity, and now they're not. And then it swept over James Bond, and now James Bond has to be like this. And then Fast and the Furious came out, and like it's very clear dividing lines of what action movies need to be, you know? 2 extra bonus points. Does anybody remember the name of the porn movie that Julie Cooper from the OC starred in?
The porn movie?
Yes.
No.
The porn supremacy?
Oh, the Porn Identity, Greg. The Porn Identity.
You're so close. I don't even know that I understand the question. I just thought I could figure out the answer.
In the OC, she had a sex tape, right? Or
okay.
Because she's from Riverside.
She's from Riverside. They all have porn sex tapes. I've got a couple more, guys. We're going to do this lickety-splickety. Men in Black 2 came out. I would say the state of the franchise dropped significantly and has continued to drop since then. Are we ready for a 2022 Men in Black?
No, they ruined the Tessa. I mean, they couldn't even do Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth. Like
Thor and Valkyrie, and you guys can't figure it out?
Yeah, it was like, I think it's just time for that to be done. There was just, they caught lightning in a bottle with the first movie, and everything has just been awful since then.
I watched the newest one, but
International?
Yeah, I don't know if I loved it, but would I watch another one? Maybe, if it has Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth again.
What used to be a joke idea now seems brilliant because of the lack of ideas in Hollywood. But when that Sony leak, the email leak happened, there was an email that just listed all of their proposed ideas, and one was 21 Jump Street / Men in Black.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh!
That sounds fantastic.
Oh, hell yeah.
Do that one, yes.
Yeah, do that one. All right, so state of the franchise, 21 Jump Street, Men in Black, please. Blade 2 came out this year. This is the Guillermo del Toro one. Then there was a third one, and then 2022, the script and the shooting went away, and now it's all being restarted.
Oh, wow.
What do we want from an MCU Blade?
I think a lot of sword fighting. I think that's mostly what it's about, like sword fighting and trench coats and that whole like techno goth thing that the Matrix gave us. I think you have to find a way to reboot that vibe. I'm not sure that it will totally carry over, but I think if you focus on real like live sword fighting in the movie, I think that's where Blade really shines.
But this is something too that like Deadpool I think is going to have a problem with. Are you pitching things that gel with Blade and Deadpool with Disney?
Yeah, I guess this is like, I don't know how you do Blade in the Disney way. Like, I mean, do you expect to go to California Adventure and like Blade walks up to you?
Oh shit, Greg! I thought you were saying that the new Blade movie for Disney takes place at California Adventure.
Dude, when are they gonna make a Star Wars show that's actually set in Star Wars land in Disneyland? Now is the time. We're ready for a Batu-based show.
No matter what, they have Mahershala Ali, and that's a good start. The final one is this was the year of Jackass the movie. 2022 saw Jackass Forever, the fourth movie. Guys, what is the state of the franchise of Jackass?
Katelynn, did you see it?
I did not see it. I used to watch Jackass like on MTV when I was younger, but it was just too much pain to watch it. So
yeah, Ryan, I think you're the expert here, Ryan. So speak to the most recent one because neither of us have seen it.
It is all of the same people, old as fuck.
Yeah, that almost like scares me to even think of them doing this stuff.
Doing the same things. I honestly think that it will make my top 10 of the year. Like, it was an incredible movie. Not just because of the stunts, but because they really have started putting them together in a way where they understand how, like, to build up momentum as far as friendship goes. And, like, just, like, it's really endearing, and you just want to be a part of the group, even though that means that the skin of your shaft of your penis will be ripped off at some point if you hang out with them. But
yeah, it's so gory sometimes, or so like painful to even see some of what happens that I get like queasy watching it.
It's the only franchise that because horror movies, I never lose the fact that they're fake while I'm watching them, so I never really look away, even if it's like, oh, this is getting stabbed into a fake eye or something. With Jackass, at certain points you have to cover your eyes.
Seriously,
you
right?
handle it.
Yeah.
But before the movie came out, they said this is the last. We're so fucking old. And then now that it's been like a year since it was released, they're starting to be like, we could do one more, right?
They're addicted to it, right? Even if they didn't get paid. I mean, I'm sure the money is nice, but I just think that part of what's always been weirdly compelling about that is that they are addicted to doing it. Like the release of all the endorphins of either landing a trick or hurting from not doing it.
Honestly, because Katelynn contains multitudes, I don't know if sitting next to her in a theater would be her throwing up the entire time, or standing on her chair going, yeah, the entire time.
Well,
I think it would be a combination of both.
And I think for almost everybody, it's a combination of both those things. It really is. It's a very effective. Like exactly everything they're trying to do, they pull off, and they are virtuoso at it. Like they do an amazing job. It's just be difficult.
Just so we're clear, a combination of both means standing on your chair and throwing up
and puking. Yeah, hands in the air, just puking.
The other franchises I have listed here, I think that are better off dead. It's Resident Evil. There's a TV show that came out this year. Like, what are we doing? Does anybody know what we're doing here?
No, I don't know what we're doing. The games are still good. The games are still kicking.
The Mummy. Brandon Fraser's moved on. I think we all should.
I wish we could. Could we reboot with the Frasier though?
I don't know, man. Maybe if he plays the Mummy.
He's a big dude. He's a big dude. We can work around that.
The last one is this was the year of 28 days later, and then we got 28 weeks later. Shouldn't we get 28 months later at some point?
We deserve it.
We deserve it. All right. That's the state of the franchise. I would say that we're doing better now, believe it or not. I would say that most of them, we said, we're still doing okay, as opposed to most people who talk about 2022 movies, which are like, it sucks. Everything sucks.
Yeah. We're just little franchise bitches. That's all we care about.
We still have Spider-Man. We still have Lord of the Rings. We still have Star Wars. Mm-hmm. You guys watching Andor?
Oh, I love the Andor.
I haven't finished yet, but I am watching Andor.
It's so epic. I love it. Gritty Star Wars. That's the way to go.
And we're still waiting for our new James Bond and Jason Bourne. But I think that we're doing okay. Guys, there's so much more coming up this season. Punch Drunk Love, Adaptation, Morvern Caller, and so much more. For Greg, for Katelynn, I am Ryan. And please, keep watching those movies.